I don't know about you guys, but hearing those last two songs, at the cross, I surrender my life, and better is one day with you. The older I get, I feel like I'm less scared of death. It used to be something that terrified me, but I think as I get older, I'm understanding more and more why people get okay with it, that they're okay with going to heaven. Because there's so many things here that it's just not perfect the way it's supposed to be. And when you lose someone, there's so many reasons that make heaven so much better. I'm going to give you a story today that's actually really familiar. You guys are all going to know. You've heard it before, you've read it before, and I'm not going to give you a whole lot of new information. But hopefully you'll leave here knowing maybe the true meaning of what Jesus was speaking about. And if you want, you can go ahead and make your way there. We're going to be in Luke chapter 10. And we're going to be talking about a parable that is oftentimes misunderstood. Not in a bad way, but just more of an ignorant way. What is a parable? A parable, a lot of people will say, is a heavenly story with an earthly meaning. That's not a bad way to put it, but there's different parables in the Bible. There's different definitions of what that would be. This in particular, the parable of the Good Samaritan, it's an example parable. Jesus is giving us a story that is not based on an actual event that happened. He's giving us an example of something that could have happened, where there's other things in the Bible that Jesus he uses as a riddle, which is also a parable. There's different spots where he say, can Satan cast out a demon? When obviously Satan is a demonic force, so he's giving a riddle, which is also a parable. And then sometimes people will use parables as an allegory, and what that means is they take the story and then find hidden meanings throughout it to try to figure out what Jesus is actually trying to say. In this one in particular, we're going to read about a man that's traveling, has three people pass by, and then the last one, the Samaritan, takes care of the person that was beaten. And there's lots of different ways you can take that, but in particular, this is not what Jesus is speaking about. He's giving us an example here. So let's go ahead and read this. And I've got the slides broken down into different sections for this parable, but I'm just going to read through it real quick, and if you want to follow along with me, that would be good. This is Luke 10, and it starts in verse 25. It says, "Behold, a lawyer stood up to put him to the test, saying, 'Teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life?' And he said to him, 'What is written in the law? How do you read it?' And he answered, 'You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself.' And he said to him, 'You have answered correctly. Do this and you will live.' But he, desiring to justify himself, said to Jesus, 'Who is my neighbor?' And then Jesus replied to him with this last part here. It says, 'A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell among robbers, who stripped him and beat him and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance, a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. So likewise, a Levite, when he came to the place, saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came to where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. He went to him and bound up his wounds, pouring oil and wine, and then he set him on his own animal and brought him to an inn and took care of him. And the next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, 'Take care of him, and whatever more you spend, I'll repay you when I come back.' Which of these 3 do you think proved to be a neighbor to the man who fell among the robbers?" And the lawyer said to him, "The one who showed him mercy." And Jesus said to him, "You go and do likewise." If you would pray with me just for a second, I want to make sure that I don't say anything that is of my own. I want to make sure that everything that I say is about Jesus. I don't claim to be a good speaker. Actually, it terrifies me sometimes to even speak in a large crowd. If you know me pretty well, if it's in a small group setting, I'm usually the one that doesn't speak very much. So if you would pray with me. God, we thank you for your word. We thank you for the Bible, that we have it, that we can look to it and apply it to our lives. I thank you for this story of the Good Samaritan. I pray that today, God, you give us the words that we need to hear. I pray that you convict us, that we leave here knowing you better, and if we don't have a relationship with you, that changes and we do believe in Jesus. I praise in Jesus' name, amen. I'm going to get a couple things out of my way here. Last time I spoke, I had everything written down. I had word for word, and I felt like that maybe took away a little bit of the passion of what I have for the story. So this time I literally just have a couple of slides, a couple of notes, and I put so much time into this that it's crazy how you put hours into something and it only lasts 10, 15 minutes, whatever. So we'll see where that goes time-wise. I also want to give you a little bit of an update before we get into the story itself with the youth group. Last time I spoke, we were kind of planning and getting ready for a dinner that we were going to serve at the Reaching Out Ministries, which is on 5th Street downtown. For those of you that helped with it, whether buying groceries or being with us to help travel, bring the kids back and forth, thank you for doing that. That is an eye-opener for a lot of our kids that are very fortunate to be around someone that had to walk when it's icy out and snow. They had to walk from downtown down probably a couple miles to get a hot meal. So for our kids, that was definitely eye-opening and I think convicting of them also to be thankful for the things that we have. And we've got youth group started back up after holidays last week, and we'll be meeting again tonight at 6 p.m. We meet down in the youth room, so if you don't know where that's at, just let Cassie or I know and we can show you. But to get into the story, the parable of the Good Samaritan, we can miss the point on this. We can miss the whole point of what Jesus is even talking about. And this kind of goes back to us helping feed other people. That is a good act, and God does teach us all throughout the Bible to love our neighbors and to take care of them, especially in particular, he always singles out the widows and the orphans. But those who are less fortunate, yes, we can give, we can help them, but that's not the point of the story. And things I picked out, and like even our culture today, we think about socialism, spreading the wealth, that there's people who have so much, and then there's people who have so little, and then we should just spread that out and take care of everybody. That is not the point of this story. The other point of the story is not social justice. It does not have anything to do with us making sure that other people are in a same social status as people who have it better. Obviously, that's an issue today. When we think about what's in the news, whether it be with Black Lives Matter, whether it be with different minority groups, I'm not taking away from those things. All I'm trying to say is that we can miss the point on this story in particular. It has nothing to do with socialism, has nothing to do with social justice. This story in particular is all about salvation. And we can't miss that point. And it does not mean that we don't work towards helping others, though. We're just trying to keep this in focus on what he's actually trying to say here. So for the next 15 or 20 minutes, whatever it's going to take, I want you to see Jesus in all of this. And when I started out that this parable is not an allegory, we don't have to pick hidden things out of this. But let me give you a couple of examples of what people do feel this story kind of puts into a picture for us, but is not it. A lot of people will look at this and they try to get the idea that the person who's traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho is us in the picture. And when we're traveling through life or whatever, we get beat down. We get beat down by sin. We get beat down by Satan, whatever it may be. So Satan would be the robbers. And then the priest and the Levite, you could say that's religion. That is the law. And when we say the law, we're meaning the Old Testament law before Jesus, which obviously don't apply to us right now. We have Jesus. And then the Samaritan in the story, you could say, is Jesus. That he finds us where we are, when we're beaten, we're broke down. He takes care of us. and then he leaves, and he says he's going to come back again, which would be the second coming of Jesus. That's what people can take out of this. But that, again, that's not exactly what Jesus is trying to do, and he's not trying to give us hidden meanings. It's actually very clear once we go through this. So to start out at the beginning of the story, we see there's one person in particular. He says the lawyer. The lawyer stood up to put him to the test. There's a crowd. Jesus has actually been speaking for quite a while. And if you look through different parts of Luke before and after this, you see he's giving different parables also. But in particular, this lawyer stood up. And the lawyer is someone that knows the law. He's someone that knows the Mosaic law. He knows the Ten Commandments. He knows what it's supposed to look like for you to follow the law. He said he stood up to put him to the test, saying, "Teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life?" Now this is a question we don't always ask all the time. It doesn't seem like our culture really cares about what is life after death. What are the consequences if I do things wrong? But in this day, this is a really popular question. This culture was fascinated with the afterlife. We see the same question asked by Nicodemus and the rich young ruler. They always would ask, how does one get born again? How does one get into heaven? How do you have eternal life? This is a very important question that all of us need to be asking, and also that we, like I said, our culture doesn't seem too fascinated with the afterlife, but at this point they were. And then the second part here says, and he said to him, "Well, what is written in the law? How do you read it?" Jesus is not using this as a way right away to give the good news of the gospel, because without the conviction of sin, you cannot give the good news. You have to let the person know where they're at first. So Jesus says, "Well, what is written in the law? How do you read it?" And he knows he's a lawyer. He knows what the law is, so he turns it back on him. Since you're the expert, you tell me. And then this is what the lawyer says. It says, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself." And the lawyer is actually taking two different Old Testament scriptures and putting them together here. And he does it very, very accurately. I'm going to go ahead and read those for you. The first one's Deuteronomy 6, 4, and 5. And that says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, and with all your might." So there's our first part. And then he also adds Leviticus 19:18. And that says, "You shall not take vengeance or bear grudge against the sons of your own people, but you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord." That's our two parts that he gave there to make up his answer. Jesus actually says in Matthew 22, puts those into perspective for us also. And this is honestly God's law wrapped up in a nutshell. It says, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your hearts, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the great and first commandment. And the second is like it, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments depends all the law of the prophets." So those are the two most important things. With the youth group, we studied the book of John not too long ago. And John's one of the main messages he always spoke about was loving your neighbor. And I spoke about that last time I preached. And Jesus said that in Matthew 22. That basically the whole Old Testament depended on those two things, loving God and loving your neighbor. We had the vertical relationship with God, and we have the horizontal with others. And that's how the Ten Commandments are also. The Ten Commandments, the first 5 has to do with our relationship with God. The last 5 has to do with our relationship with others. So that answer that he gave was very, very accurate. But Jesus said to him, "You have answered correctly. Do this and you will live." There's an issue with this, because how do you love people perfectly until the day you die? It seems like it's a pretty difficult task, and you would have to do that in order to fulfill the law and do it perfectly. You have to do this until you die. Now, I appreciate the programs that we have to help communities like Reaching Out. We have Love Inc. here at the church that is a community program. We appreciate those. But no matter how much money we give, no matter how many meals we prepare, we can never do this perfectly until the day we die. And Jesus is going to explain this a little further to him. But he, desiring to justify himself, "Who is my neighbor?" There's something that you have to realize about this answer. He's going further into the question of who is my neighbor, but God just said, if you love God perfectly and love your neighbor perfectly, you'll get eternal life. This man must have assumed, this lawyer, assumed that he's already had those two things perfect. Because, well, the only thing that could be different is our definition of neighbor. Because I already love the people I consider neighbor perfectly. So maybe the definitions are a little bit different. And something about the Pharisees of that time, the religious leaders, the way they justified the small definition of neighbor is because they love those who love God, and then there's scripture where they would also hate those who despise God. So they had limitations on who they thought their neighbor was. And when I think about that, those who despise God, like we're supposed to hate them, is what they think. That hits home for me also. Because when I see that there's, whether brotherhoods or whatever it is, if they're killing Christians, that upsets me. That makes me want to have revenge myself. Like if I was to meet them in person, I would do everything within me to make sure that they get the same treatment that that Christian got. But that's not what Jesus teaches. And that's the hard part. So these people thought that you would love those who love God and hate those who despise Him. And then Jesus goes into the parable here. It says, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho. This is literally a travel down a mountain. It's a very short distance, but a very big drop. Jerusalem was up high, so you had to go up to get it. And if you're going to leave, you had to go down the mountain. And I love how Jesus gives this example of a real place with people they would have been able to relate with. It says that he was traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho, and then he fell among robbers. This place was actually very well known for a place that wasn't safe. So for him to give this example, it's easy to relate with. And it's also, not that it's comforting to know that the world's always been bad in a way, but it's good to know that God has instruction for us, even when we think how bad today is, when we hear so many bad stories, that it's been like this for a long time. But obviously we have victory overall through Jesus. It says those robbers who stripped him and beat him, and then they departed, leaving him half dead. So they took his clothes, they stripped him, they beat him to almost right within inches of death, and then they left him. Now by chance, a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. So a priest, who's someone who was a religious person, this is probably somebody you might think would be the person to take care of him, show mercy. I've read different commentaries that maybe the priest had religious obligations of why he wouldn't have helped him. Maybe that man was sinning, and this was God's punishment on him, and he didn't want to interfere with God's punishment, that the man didn't learn his lesson, whatever his sin might be. Or maybe the man, priest, which he would have worked at the tabernacle or church, whatever you want to call that, and maybe he didn't want to be unclean. He didn't want to touch him, because obviously he would be touching things that are holy at the church. So he passed by. So he didn't show any mercy. He didn't show the love that he was supposed to. He knew the law also. He was a priest. He was a religious person. He knew that the Old Testament says that you're supposed to love your neighbor as yourself. Let me point out something here, though. Don't always trust religious people. Don't always trust church leaders. You have to follow Jesus on your own. We can't do it for you. I'm going to let you down. Dan's going to let you down. Your relationship is between you and God. Don't trust us to be the perfect example. We'll fail you. So likewise, a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. A Levite was somebody who would have also known the law. The Levite groups were very religious. So this is another example of someone who knew the law. And when he came to the place and saw him, he passed by on the other side. Again, if you read commentaries, there's possible excuses on why this guy would have passed by. Maybe the robbers had just beaten and left this guy, but they were just hiding, waiting for somebody else to try to help him, and then they also do the same to him. So maybe this guy just seen this and didn't want it to happen to him, so he just kept going. But then, a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came to where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. Now, you need to know what a Samaritan was and why this is important. A Samaritan to a Pharisee or to a Jew was someone that was an outcast. They're a half-breed. They're people who are the worst of the worst. At one point, when Jesus was speaking, they were rebuking him, and the worst term they could give him was, "You're a Samaritan with a demon." That's what they thought Jesus was. And using Samaritan was a bad term. This is somebody they hated. So this lawyer is listening to this story, and he's hearing about a Samaritan. I'm sure he listened in pretty close on this part of it, because this is somebody he probably hated, because Samaritans, they didn't really love God as the way they should. They didn't always live by the law. But a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came to where he was, and he saw him, he had compassion. And when he went to him, he bound up his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Now, why is this guy traveling with oil and wine? More than likely, he was doing the same as the man that was traveling by himself. The oil could have been used for cooking. The wine would have been used for a first aid, or for, in that time, they could have used it for drinking also, to help cleanse all the stuff that would have been in the water or in the food he was eating. Then he set him on his own animal and brought him to an inn and took care of him. The animal, we don't know exactly what animal it is. It could have been an ox. It could have been a donkey. It doesn't tell us exactly, but more than likely it was a donkey. And brought him to an inn. And this is not the Holiday Inn. This is somewhere where people may not like to go. This is a place where if you have nowhere else to go, that's where you go. So he took him to an inn and took care of him. And then the next day he took out 2 denarii. This man took him to an inn, then stayed the night with him, probably still taking care of him. And he's still with him, took out 2 denarii, which is a lot of money, and gave the innkeeper, saying, "Take care of him, and whatever more you spend, I will repay you when I come back." That is lavish love. He is pouring out love to this man, and we still don't even know why, other than he had compassion for him. But as you can see, he's taking care of him quite well. And Jesus asked him, "Which of the 3 do you think proved to be a good neighbor to the man who fell among the robbers?" And the lawyer, obviously he's a smart guy, he's sharp, said to him, "The one who showed mercy." And Jesus said to him, "You go and do likewise." And the story ends. There's a blank spot between the end of that parable and when Jesus starts speaking again. We don't ever see that this man thought he didn't love his neighbors correctly. We don't ever see that he had a question when really all he had to say was, I can't love every person like that, like the Samaritan loved him. I can't love every person that perfectly." That's all he had to do, is say, "I can't." So the first point here I have is you can't live up to God's law. It's not possible. If you read the Bible, that's the point. Is that the Old Testament law, there were sacrifices you had to do because you would sin. And then the New Testament, because of our sin and our sin nature that continues and that we continue to do, we have Jesus that was born here. He took on flesh. He was beaten. He was put on a cross and then died for our sins because of our sin. We can't live up to the law. We're not perfect. And then obviously he rose from the grave and conquered death for us. So if we can't live up to this law perfectly, what are we supposed to do? Well, the lawyer probably should have said, "I can't, I need your help," or "I need forgiveness," or something, because I can't do that. I cannot live up to the law perfectly until the day I die. So Jesus offers a way out. And that's what the whole point of this story is that you can't do it on your own. Again, I'm not saying that the example given of taking care of others is not a good thing. It's just not the point. The point is, Jesus is giving us an example of something we can never do perfectly, but we have forgiveness through him. So Jesus offers a way out. Now, when you do become a believer, it's funny because your heart is going to be changed, and you will begin to love God better. You're going to have a desire for that. Your heart's going to be in that direction. And then you're also going to want to love your neighbor better. So it kind of goes hand in hand. Something we can't do perfectly. We cannot live up to the law. Jesus offers a way out. But with the Holy Spirit and our heart in that direction, those things change. And Jesus talks a whole lot more about hell than he does about heaven. And when preparing for a sermon, I want to make sure that when I read something and I present something, that what is God trying to say here? This guy asked the question, how do I get eternal life? That was it. That was his first question. God gives him a question back. What's the law say? You can't do that? Okay, you need Jesus. So, what is the point of the story? It's about salvation. And I pray that if you hear this, that it opens your eyes a little bit. You see the point that you can never be a good enough person to make it into heaven. A few years ago, and I should probably think about what type of illustrations I give, because a lot of times when I do it in youth group, it's it makes me look bad, at least. But a few years ago, one of our yearly traditions with my dad and my friends, we would go to the Indianapolis Supercross race and watch the dirt bikes. And one year, for some reason, we decided that we would get in early before the gates opened. We didn't know how we were going to do that, and as we're standing by the building and by all the semis where all the races are at, we see somebody walk by the doors. And when you see them, we knock on the door, and they actually answer. I thought they would just ignore us and go on. There's no reason for us to need help or anything. They answered, though. I forgot what we said. I think we said, where's the autograph signing or something. They said they had no idea. It was probably just a person that was working the hot dog stand or something. So when they left, the doors beginning to shut, and I can't remember who it was, but somebody stuck their foot in the door, and just enough to where it was barely open. And we just kind of stood there for a minute, waiting for them to clear out so they wouldn't see us. Then when the coast was clear, we all snuck in one by one. As one went in, the other would grab the door handle and wait. And when you went in, you tried to find the nearest bathroom and just go hide. So one by one, we all got in there. When we're on to the bathroom, we're like, okay, now that we got into here, what are we going to do? This wasn't our goal to get into the bathroom. We wanted to see the guys on the track practicing and stuff. So we all get out, and it's kind of clear, actually. There's not a whole lot of people in the stadium. And we were in there for about 2 hours before we eventually got caught. We got to watch them ride and walk and get lots of pictures. But as we're walking around, like by the food stands and stuff, somebody that seemed like a higher up asked us for our tickets and our passes, and the tickets we had were obviously just your cheap ones to get in. And once they realized that we were not supposed to be there, they kicked us out. They escorted us to the door, and we were gone. Now that obviously doesn't make me look real great, which is fine. I get it all the time. But the point is, you're not just going to sneak into heaven, and it's not just going to happen by being good. There is a specific way to get there, and God gives us this through His Word, that we need to repent of our sin and also believe in Jesus, and that He is who He said He was, which is obviously the Son of God. So, before you leave here, I pray that if you don't have a relationship with Christ, that you do. I pray that you think about that question, that you don't leave here without knowing Christ. And before we dismiss, if anybody would ever like to pray, you're more than welcome to come to me. We can pray up here up front. We can go wherever you want to go. There's more than just me also. We have deacons that are willing to pray with you. We have other church leaders. Jesus is the only way to heaven. It's not going to happen by accident. And you're not going to get there by works. So Jesus offers a way out of that. So that is some good news. And I'm thankful that I know that's where I'm going. I'm thankful that I get to see family members that I've lost. I'm thankful to see Jesus. So I hope you're going to be there with me. Because I sure hope so. I know it's fun down here sometimes, but obviously it's not always good. So I hope when that day comes, when my time comes, I hope I see you all there. So I'm going to pray. And then, like I said, if you guys are more than welcome, if you want to come up here and pray with me, I'd be more than welcome to pray with you. But if you would, pray with me before we're dismissed. God, we thank you again for your word. We're thankful for the story of the Good Samaritan. We're thankful for Jesus. We're thankful that when we fall short and when we can't live up to the law, that God, you offer forgiveness. You offer our payments to be fulfilled through the death of Jesus. I thank you for that. I'm very thankful. I pray that everyone here knows that. I pray that they have a relationship with you, and if they don't, I pray that they begin to believe in you. And I thank you for everything you've done for us. That even when days don't look that great, we still have hope in you, and we still have joy through you. We know that you've already won the battle. I pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen.